Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Telescope Podcast.
What's up, everybody? Everyone in this place, if you could do a handstand, I want to see your feet up in the air right now.
Hello, welcome to the Telescope Podcast, the show where we look at geek culture through the spyglass of faith. Matthew Seipel Anderson here as always. We are going to talk about Captain Marvel, and I'm going to give some of my thoughts looking forward to Avengers Endgame. I just couldn't wait, and I wanted to do this episode a few weeks ago, but it's just been a busy time in my personal life, so you know what? We do what we can. But, before we get to all that, and just a lot of fun things on this show, but I saw this article, and I could not resist making it part of today's show. It's coming from NPR.org. The headline is, Economic Report of the President and Some Superhero Friends. With great power comes great responsibility, or the chance to pull a practical joke. Pranksters included some whimsical credits buried in the fine print of an annual White House economic report, making it seem that Peter Parker and Aunt May had joined the staff of the President's Council of Economic Advisors. That's the first paragraph of this article, which I will put a link to in the show notes. Essentially, what happened was, whoever was putting together this report, at the end of the report, there's a whole list of names of people who contributed to the report. And in the section where the interns are listed, someone added a bunch of these names to the interns list. So Spider-Man's alter ego and his aunt are listed among the interns who contributed to the 705-page report. Other high-profile interns listed include John Cleese of Monty Python, Catherine Janeway from Star Trek, Bruce Wayne, the alter ego of Batman, of course, and many others. So it was kind of a fun thing. And the article says that Martha Gimbel, research director at Indeed.com, was one of the many economists who picked up on the stunt, tweeting, "The quality of the interns at the CEA is much better than when I was there." So I thought that was great, just a hilarious little story. Well, what else do we have? Let's talk about some science. This story is coming from ScienceDaily.com, and the headline is, Gene Therapy Durably Reverses Congenital Deafness in Mice. And I'm doing this story. I wanted to talk about something to do with gene editing for a reason, and it's so I can give a shout out to my buddy Andrew. Andrew listens to the show. Andrew works in sales, and he does sales calls to our church, and we've gotten to know each other because he swings by periodically. And we talk nerdy stuff, and Andrew's listened to the show, and so he said, "You've got to watch this old movie called Gattaca." And he's like, "You need to see it. It's predicting and looking forward to what would happen in a society where the upper class was genetically modified to be superior. So you'd have like economic classes and then a separation of genetic classes. And then the story is this character from the lower class steals an identity and to fulfill his dream of becoming a pilot, because in this future age, only the genetically modified people with super intelligence and super sight and whatever, they're the only ones who can get those kind of positions. And so he sneaks his way into this elite school, and it just it's a really interesting concept. And he even went so far as one day he swung over to the church where I work and brought me the film, but it was on Blu-ray. And so I couldn't watch it, and I still haven't seen it. I told him I would watch it. I still haven't done it. I'm sorry. I'll have to do that. But anyway, so I just wanted to give him a shout out. And he also is responsible for me seeing Captain Marvel, because he and I went to see that together. And I was running a little bit late, and he noticed that the theater was filling up, so he actually bought my ticket on $5 Movie Tuesday. So thank you, Andrew, for making this show possible. And so this science segment goes out to you, my friend. And it goes like this. In collaboration with the universities of Miami, Columbia, and San Francisco, scientists from the Institut Pasteur INSERM, CNRS, College de France Sorbonne. I know I butchered that. Anyway, these guys, this scientific team, they have managed to restore hearing in an adult mouse. And I'm just going to read this because it's a little scientific-y, and you know me. Hearing in an adult mouse model of DFNB9 deafness, a hearing disorder that represents one of the most frequent cases of congenital genetic deafness. Individuals with DFNB9 deafness are profoundly deaf as they are deficient in the gene coding for otopharynx, a protein which is essential for transmitting sound information at the auditory sensory cell synapses. By carrying out an intracochlear injection of this gene in an adult DFNB9 mouse model, the scientists successfully restored auditory synapse function and hearing threshold to a near normal level. These findings, published in the journal PNAS, open up new avenues for future gene therapy trials in patients with DFNB9. So that is super awesome. Hopefully this will result in miracle cures for many people. Science is awesome. All right, well, let's move on to our feature content. All right, like I said, this is going to be an episode on Captain Marvel, but since it took me so long to get to this episode, hold on, I got to press pause and cover up my baby who's right down here next to me. She's my co-host. All right, there we go. Baby covered. Now we can move on. All right, I'm just going to throw out my thoughts on Captain Marvel, but like I was saying, since it took so long for me to get to this episode, and we're getting so close to the next Avengers installment, and there's just this crazy buzz building, I thought I'm just going to go ahead and mash these two together because really Captain Marvel is sort of a precursor. It's kind of the last piece that they're putting in place before the big Avengers event, so I think it's appropriate. So I'm just going to throw out my thoughts on Captain Marvel, not really in any particular order, other than the very beginning, right before the movie starts even, they do a really wonderful tribute to Stan Lee, and I thought it was so cool. If you haven't seen it, I'm just going to spoiler away, so, spoiler alert. I just loved at the beginning of the movie how instead of using clips from the various Marvel movies like they always do, they have like the comic book thing that kind of flitters and you get all kinds of like fast-moving clips and then the Marvel logo comes up. Well, they did it with all Stan Lee cameos. Just you got this little montage of Stan Lee cameos, and even the the Marvel logo had Stan Lee inside the letters. It was cool, it was touching, and I think, everybody just loves Stan Lee. In general, the movie is very enjoyable. There's not really anything bad I can say. I would say it's maybe not as strong as some of the other Marvel movies. It reminds me maybe like an Ant-Man and Wasp. Maybe like Captain America Part 1 kind of level. And partially I think that's because they had a lot of work to do in this movie, because this movie is really putting a lot of seeds in the soil for the next phase. Right, we get a deeper look into the Kree and the Skrulls, and we meet the Supreme Intelligence from the Kree, and we meet Mar-Vell, and we meet Mar-Vell, and then Carol Danvers becomes Captain Marvel and picks up the baton. And so there's a lot of things that they had to do to prepare for the next phase, and there's some things they had to set up for the next Avengers movie. But overall, I loved it. Something I loved about this movie was Samuel L. Jackson. I would say he was my favorite character, definitely. And I think that's because I've got a history with this character, and it was just really, really fun to learn his backstory. and to see him as a younger version of the character Nick Fury. And, you know, a lot of characters are developed in a linear way, like going forward. And it was fun to watch the performance of Samuel L. Jackson going backwards and showing a less hardened, more fun, more, you know, happy-go-lucky version of Nick Fury. That was really, really cool. And kind of, I would imagine that would be a challenge for an actor, or at least, you know, that would take a lot of thought. You know, there's a lot of deliberation that would go into creating a character like that in reverse. The movie had some fun surprises, especially when Nick Fury lost his eye and how that all happened. And there was a loud patron in the theater with us, and it was just so funny. And warning, spoiler alert, major spoiler alert, I'm about to give away how Nick Fury lost his eye. So literally, like, if you want to listen but don't want to have this one spoiled, just push that little, like, 10-second forward button, like, you know, 3 times or something, then you won't hear the spoiler. But, you know, in the movie, when the alien cat, you know, the cat who you learn is an alien later in the film, scratches Nick Fury's eye, and this dude just yells out, "Oh, man, the cat got his eye!" It was hilarious. I think that guy made the whole theater laugh. It was great. So that whole thing with him was just stellar. And you know, other than that, the movie had some funny parts. It wasn't as humorous as other movies. It's hard to compete with things like Thor Ragnarok. That was just a very hilarious movie. And we have so much history with the characters that, you know, they can go a lot deeper. The fans have all these inside jokes and all this knowledge of backstory that they can pull from to make things more funny. So when it comes to Captain Marvel, we're just getting to know her. And so, I don't know, I think it's just natural that this movie is not going to be as hard-hitting for us as fans as some of the other ones, because, like I said, we're getting to know a brand new character. It's like making a new friend, you know? You don't have inside jokes on day one. I will say one of my favorite jokes in the film was there's this scene where they're in like a spacecraft and they're fighting. The Kree and the Skrulls are fighting, and this Kree warrior picks up a gun and aims it at Captain Marvel and fires, and you think, oh, Captain Marvel is totally toast. Well, it's a Nerf gun, because on the ship there were kids, so this Nerf dart goes out and sticks. And it was so great because it just, once again, it shows that Marvel has its finger on the pulse of the fans, and that Marvel is very self-aware and able to laugh at itself. And you know, I'm going to go back once again to my Aquaman episode, because in Aquaman, the props were so obnoxiously big and taken so seriously. It was just great to have that moment where, you know, Marvel lets us know, hey, we know this is all a little bit silly, and thank you for taking it seriously, and we're going to laugh at ourselves, and we hope you laugh with us. Just that moment was so great for me. It just, it was nice. So, Marvel, thank you for creating another very enjoyable superhero experience for us, and we are all looking forward to the next thing, and that's what I'm going to talk about next. I want to talk a little bit about Avengers Endgame. One of the most interesting theories I've heard online is that perhaps Captain Marvel was the very reason that Thanos learned that the Tesseract was on Earth. That was kind of an interesting thing. That's neither here nor there. I don't know if that will come out in the next movie or not, or if that will just be, I don't know. But I thought that was interesting. Well, anyway, they just released a little featurette as kind of a, I don't know, I guess it was another trailer, but it had some commentary by some of the actors. And Robert Downey Jr. says that the storytelling in this next film is amazing and totally unpredictable. And to me, that was just like a challenge for me to, and for all of us. It was just like a challenge to all of us. Like, I dare you to try and guess where we're going to go with this next movie. So I have come up with a few scenarios, and we'll just see if I'm right. So here's what I think could happen, potentially. I've got a couple scenarios. Number 1, rabies-infested saliva is extracted from Rocket. beamed with gamma radiation by Bruce Banner, making it into Ultra Rabies, Hulk Rabies. Then it will be put into a vibranium syringe by Shuri, who is Black Panther's sister. Next, Tony Stark will put micro rockets and a guidance system onto it. Tony Stark and Nebula will work together to figure out how to use the Ant-Man atomic realm tech to shrink the needle and send it through a quantum realm wormhole. Captain Marvel will confront Thanos as a distraction. Black Widow and Hawkeye will run surveillance. When they give the signal, the missile will exit the quantum realm, stick into Thanos, and then spring into full size. And Hawkeye will deliver the death blow by depressing the syringe with an arrow that he breaks the head off of. And Thanos will die of rabies. Well, that's one possible scenario. Here's another one. Thanos defeats the Avengers again. But at the last minute, the ghosted heroes inside the Soul Stone revolt and break out. Doctor Strange uses his wizardry to flare Thanos' nostrils, while Black Panther claws his eyes. Scarlet Witch sticks her arms up Thanos' flared nostrils and takes control of his brain. Thanos lets the Infinity Gauntlet fall to the ground as the Guardians of the Galaxy put graffiti all over Thanos' armor. And another idea. And these are maybe a little bit more serious, and they're not as detailed. But I think Tony Stark will stab Thanos somehow, because Thanos stabbed Tony Stark, and that just seems like a really American thing, like, yeah, baby, take that. So I think that will happen. Potentially Adam Warlock from Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and he was, you never saw him, but he was spoken about in the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 post-credit scene, so potentially he could show up. And also, I think it would be cool if the other Ravagers or the space pirates show up from Guardians of the Galaxy 2. That would be sweet. Of course, they could just save all that stuff for the next phase. That might be too obscure at this point for more casual fans. They might be like, who's this dude? So they might just save that for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. We'll see. A question I have, question/prediction, will there be sacrifices for the Soul Stone? What I mean is, in order to take the Soul Stone, Thanos had to sacrifice the thing he loved most. So, could it be part of the drama of this is, will our good guys have to do a similar sacrifice in order to break up the Infinity Stones and take the Soul Stone? I don't know. Or can you just be like, all right, I'm putting it back. We're all good. And Red Skull's like, okay, thank you. You know, I don't know. Okay, please. Ooh, I've got a little bit of a fussy baby here, so I'm going to try to push on. All right, please. Here's my one complaint about Captain Marvel, and I hope that they can help me with this in the next Avengers movie. Please show us that Captain Marvel can be beaten. I felt like at the end of the movie, at the end of Captain Marvel, that is, she was a little overpowered. And apparently she is one of the most powerful characters in the MCU. So, I guess it makes sense that she just, flies through those spaceships like they're, nothing. But I would love to see an upper limit put on her, because in the DC world, one of my least favorite things is Superman, because he's just too overpowered. Like, he's just too powerful. It's ridiculous. And it just makes it no fun. So anyway, I'd like to see that. And I have another question is, will the Kree Supreme Intelligence become involved in Avengers Endgame? And seeing Captain Marvel and learning about that character, learning that the Kree is controlled by basically a supercomputer, a sentient supercomputer, it made me think, okay, did the Kree warrior Ronan, who, if you recall, we saw at the very end of Captain Marvel, he was the guy with the big hammer thing in the spaceship, and later he is the one who helps Thanos recover the Power Stone, but he turns on Thanos and takes the Power Stone for himself. Is it possible that he was acting at the direction of the Supreme Intelligence? And did the Supreme Intelligence instruct him to keep the Power Stone on behalf of the Kree Empire? And if that's the case, I could definitely see the Kree and the Supreme Intelligence becoming involved in this battle against Thanos to try to take some of these Infinity Stones for the Kree Empire. So anyway, those are my questions, my thoughts, my theories. Love to hear what your theories are. But now it's time for the most important part of this show. It's time to
Bring forth the telescope!
Well, Captain Marvel, at the end of the film, breaks free from her inhibitor. She had this inhibitor on her neck or the back of her head that inhibited her powers. And at the end, she breaks out of that and discovers her true power. And it reminded me of Hebrews chapter 12. It says, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which easily ensnares us. And let us run with endurance the race set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. And I think that's, what you saw in Captain Marvel is she broke free of that thing that inhibited her. And what God is saying in this chapter here is that there are things in our life that hold us back from walking with God, from accomplishing the things that are strong in our heart to do. And we need to set those things aside. We need to set aside the things that not only are sins that specifically are, that we're specifically told and commanded not to do, but just the things that hold us back, just the distractions, and because they rob us from accomplishing our life's goal and our life's mission. And that's tragic, when all kinds of little things like termites eat away at us and steal our time and really steal our life. So that's a big encouragement. And another theme in this movie that really resonates with me as a believer in Christ is the theme of helping the downtrodden, poor, and oppressed. One of the big surprises in the Captain Marvel film was that the Kree were actually the oppressors, while the Skrulls were the oppressed. And Isaiah, if I can turn there with one hand, thankfully I have a bookmark in. Isaiah chapter 1, verse 15 speaks to that. 15 and 16 says, when you spread out your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood. Wash yourselves, make yourselves clean. Put away the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Cease from doing evil, learn to do good. And here it is, seek justice, rebuke the oppressor, defend the fatherless, and plead for the widow. And it's just, that is a theme that goes all the way through the Bible. The Jewish people were slaves, and the Lord set them free, and then he commanded them to take care of foreigners and not mistreat them, because at one point they were foreigners. And, Jesus came to the downtrodden, to the oppressed, to an oppressed Jewish people, and really taught that every one of us was a slave to sin, and we needed the grace of God and the sacrifice of God to remove the burden of sin and empower us to walk free. And of course, it's not by our religious activities, but it's because of the work of Jesus on the cross. And when we just stop our rebellious hearts, and when we receive the grace of God, and when we turn to Him and just allow Him to direct our lives, that's when we break free of the inhibitor in our life. And it's an amazing thing to just have the grace of God, to know that you're loved, but at the same time, and to know that you're loved and that you're righteous in God's eyes, but at the same time, to know that it is 100% nothing to do with you, and so you can't be proud. You can't be, you can't be proud about it. It's just a grace thing, and it's awesome. So, all right, I have gone long on this episode, but it's good to be back. I love doing the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it, and love you. Take care. Bye-bye.
What's up, everybody? Everyone in this place, if you can do a handstand, I want to see your feet up in the air right now.